the next panel that will discuss in more detail how can technologies support climate change or tackle climate change, protect the environment, how can youth as activists help to protect the environment. And I'm very happy to hand over to the host for this session, Craig Matthews from our fantastic partner in Graz, the Science Park. Craig, the stage is yours, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nora, for that warm introduction. Let me start off with my monologue, which is, in 2006, the United States had just experienced its hottest year on record. In the year that followed, in the January, Thomas Friedman, Pulitzer Prize winner, coined the term a Green New Deal. It was a rallying call for a transition away from the burning of fossil fuels that damage our environment and cause climate change. In 2008, the UN adopted the term and gave it a global context, naming it the Global Green New Deal. More recently, at the end of 2019, the European Commission announced the European Green Deal, a set of policy initiatives with the overarching aim of making Europe climate neutral by 2050 and make Europe the first climate neutral continent. With it is a plan to review each existing law on its climate merits and introduce new legislation on the circular economy, building renovation, biodiversity, and farming and innovation. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, as you've heard this morning, evoked the epic challenge faced back in 1969 when we first landed on the moon, stating this would be Europe's man on the moon moment. She also described how climate policy is Europe's new growth strategy. The challenges the world faces today on the environment and on the climate are vast. New innovative green technologies are part of the answer, but alone they are not enough. We also need to change our behaviors and the way we consume our resources. My name is Craig Matthews, and as a senior innovation consultant in Austria's oldest and largest high-tech incubator, Science Park Graz, I have the privilege to engage with passionate innovators and entrepreneurs, some of whom are working on technologies to enable more efficient land use or working on new energy storage solutions. They are already contributing to the global effort to slow down climate change. In this session, within the context of the European Green Deal, we will explore how entrepreneurs can be supported to work on green tech, climate-friendly solutions. We'll also look at how the circular economy is offering an additional way forward to a sustainable future. And of course, we will explore how we can all contribute to slowing climate change. Our panel today consists of Bernhard Puttinger, Hannah Kromminga, Brieuc Saffré, Katharina Rogenhofer, and Peter Sänger. I will invite each panelist to state where they are from and to give us their brief opening remarks before we settle down into our discussion. You, our audience, also have a stake in this discussion, and I would like to invite you to submit your questions in the chat here. I will do my best to get the answers you seek. In total, this session is 90 minutes long, so let's get started. My first panelist has a long and illustrious career in the green tech sector. He has been a campaign coordinator for NGOs in the field of energy and environment, an independent energy consultant, an energy expert for the Science Center Vienna, and a network coordinator for the Styrian Eco Energy Network. Today, Bernhard Puttinger is not only the managing director of the Green Tech Cluster Styria, in which he was instrumental in the formation of it back in 2006, he is also an energy and cluster development expert at UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. I would like to invite Bernhard to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, for hanging over, and I'll share my screen with you, the audience. It's an honor to have you in Graz, the festival. Despite we're not meeting personal, it's always an exciting moment at the end of the year to have the European Young Innovators Festival here in Graz. The Graz and surroundings is known as the Green Heart of Austria, the Green March, but also as the Green Tech Valley. And I'd like to show you how that came and what opportunities there are for young innovators to utilize the opportunities in Green Deal and circular economy. So the man on the moon moment, I think this is quite inspiring, and this is really the challenge we are ahead of. It's nothing that we can tackle soon. It's something we have to be very strict, have to have a clear plan, and we have to take the people with us. So just like in the Green Deal, leaving no one behind. And technology is only one part of the solution. It's the one part that I work most with, despite we always have people from various areas and also psychologists with, because it's always about people changing or acting, buying technology, utilizing, having a new behavior. So it has to go hand in hand. Our vision is the Vision 100. Given that we have only one Earth, we need 0 additional carbon, and especially in our region also in the recycling business, to have 0 additional waste. So climate and circular solutions are needed. What do we as a cluster do for that? Well, that was too fast. So we see here in this Green Tech Valley, we have around 220 companies, out of which 20 are global technology leaders. Within 1 hour's drive in the south of Austria, they are focused on climate and circular recycling solutions. It's about an innovation hotspot around Graz, where we foster the development of innovative products and a global outreach of these technologies. In the middle, you see the team of 10 people. This is my team, the Green Tech Cluster team, when we won a Guinness World Record for other reasons. What is our mission? What do we do? It's about network growth and innovation that we provide to the innovators, to companies, but also startup and young entrepreneurial minds. I don't go too far into details here, but you can see it's about getting people together, getting global connections, and fostering and trends, and developing R&D projects and innovative products at the end of the day. So these are also our key performance indicator. What's in for young innovators? Join the Green Tech Jam together with the Technical University Graz and other partners. Grab 7,000 euros of cash for your ideas, digital concept mock-ups, and so on, for real business challenges that are out there. So join us on these 2 days at the Technical University in Graz in person. We hope so, despite the COVID situation. But also join the Green Tech Hub. So this is a dedicated startup area in the Science Tower. We are located as well in Graz. It's the world's first energy glass tower. What you see on the top is a dye-sensitized solar cell that was scaled from a size like this to what you see here, 600 square meters within 3 years. So this is the world's largest installation so far. But what's in for you is office space and other things, community, and so on. The next opportunity that might be sounding to you, if you're still a student, wherever you are located, join the Green Tech Summer Graz, a model that we developed together with Science Park, Gründungsgarage, and other partners to help you not to work during the summer months, but to develop your startup business and get cash for it. So probably for next summer, if you have not something else to do, join the Green Tech Summer Graz. You can apply soon. And also join Top of Green Tech, Austria's climate tech landscape. You see here that we have done together with Glacier, where the green tech startups and young entrepreneurs meet 25th of March next year. So that's it. But at the end of the day, how can green tech and all those minds provide job growth, turnover growth, but also CO2 emission reduction? What we've seen in our region, which has a long history in this area, that within a bit more than 10 years, the number of employees has more than doubled to 25,000. Turnover has tripled to more than 5 billion euros. So this is now 11% of the gross regional product already. And all those technologies that are out there, okay, this is mainly hydropower, but also biomass, solar, and so on, save 550 megatons of CO2 reduction. This is the amount that Canada could be turned to green, that is saved each year. This does not mean that we have to relax and lay back. No, we have to provide more technologies, but we have to get the people to apply them, and we have to have systemic solutions, not only technologies. With that, I want to thank you, and I'm looking forward to the discussion, and looking forward to meet you someday in the Green Tech Valley around Graz.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Our next panelist, they say communication and sales is at the heart of any successful company. You may have the most exciting new innovation to offer, but if you can't convince others of its value, you may struggle. My next panelist has ample experience in this area. From London to Berlin, Hannah Kromminga is the founder of Silfir, a fashion tech startup with the mission to create a world without clothing waste, and co-founder of the Green Tech Alliance, a community of green tech companies which connects the members to top-tier VCs and media and experts. Please, Hannah.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for this introduction, Craig. I'm really happy to be here with you, and I think the most interesting thing to say about myself and why I'm speaking at this event today is the hypothesis I've been investigating for many years now, and what has brought me to founding Silfir, and also the pivot of Silfir, which is going to be called Gifted, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a second, as well as the Green Tech Alliance. I think for me personally, studying business and finance in London, and then working in various software startups, and really diving deep into how to bring innovation into the world, I've always asked myself, you know, what's the most relevant topic of our time? Obviously, it's how we can avoid climate change, or how we can reduce the impact of climate change. What I'd like to talk to you about today is how we can implement the change in consumer-facing solutions to actually draw people into changing their consumption behavior. And I've been researching on this topic for quite some years now, and have come to this conclusion that what it takes to actually introduce the consumption shift that everyone wants to see in the world is that we need to create new, self-sustainable systems that enable consumers to adopt new solutions with ease, and with the ability to, actually replace old consumption patterns. And this is why I founded Silfir, which is a sustainable circular fashion brand. And now what we're doing next year, and this is what I would actually like to talk about, is going to be a platform that is called Gifted. And Gifted will be an app where you can gift unwanted clothes to friends, family, and neighbors through a simple pickup process. The idea of this is that if you look at the consumption process of clothing, you know, you have production, you have maintenance, and usage of clothing, and then you have disposal of clothing. And what we're trying to do with Gifted is really extend the length of the life cycle of clothing by redistributing what we've already produced, and it leverages a key solution to sustainable consumption, which I think is the gift economy. So I think we already are seeing the sharing economy being used a lot in innovative consumer solutions. And what we're doing with Gifted is introducing the gifting economy to clothing. And yeah, I'm super excited to see what we can achieve with Gifted next year. We already have a trial live in Berlin with an initial invite-only set of users to come up with the final functionality, and we're seeing really great traction, and it's just really amazing to see the potential of the gift economy in terms of introducing sustainable consumption on a larger scale. And yeah, that's why I'm here today, and thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that introduction. Mentor, strategist, board member, lecturer, entrepreneur, and if I may dare to say circular economy evangelist, these are just some of the roles I can attribute to my next panelist. Brieuc is CEO of Circulab and an WSA alumni and former winner. After being a marketing consultant for several major groups like Cadbury and Sony, Brieuc co-founded Circulab, a design agency and community of experts dedicated to the circular economy. They help companies to create new opportunity thanks to the regenerative economy. Brieuc, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Glad to see you. I'm the co-founder of Circulab, and what we do is quite simple. We help companies to have some regenerative business models, because when we talk about circular and regenerative economy, we should talk about design actually. Do you know, for example, that 80% of the environmental impacts of any service or product depends on the design stage? So if we talk about circular economy, we must design for the user, of course, but also with a system, with the systems thinking in mind. Because if we stop our thinking only to the user step, we will generate a lot of waste. And these waste actually are the massive black hole of our societies that generate climate change, that generate massive impacts on health, massive impacts on economy, and so on. So that's why we have to design with a very, very different way. And that's why we talk more about circular economy, we talk about circular design. So yeah, it was our quick introduction. So we just to finish, we developed a method with tools. Some of them are in Creative Commons to help entrepreneurs, companies to design in a systems way of thinking their next products, services, or even to redesign their current products. And it exists for 6 years now, and the tools and the method are available in 8 different languages. So yeah, that's it for me.
Wonderful, thank you. My next panelist has a wealth of green credentials and global experience to rival perhaps even the most seasoned diplomat. From Denmark to India, from Germany to the UK, today Austria is her home. Katharina Rogenhofer has been a researcher, journalist, executive committee member of the Human Welfare Conference, environmental representative at Green Templeton College in Oxford, assisted the Momentum for Change team as part of the UNFCCC to help celebrate the 2018 Lighthouse activities and empower people and groups to take climate action. Today, Katharina is Vice President of the Think Association, a climate activist for Friday for Future, and project leader and spokesperson at Klimavolksbegehren.
Thank you for the introduction. You have read my LinkedIn profile very well. Maybe to start, I am from Austria. I'm born in Austria, but I've lived all over the world quite extensively. And my background is actually in biology and zoology, and in my natural science life, I've seen a lot of changes in the environment. And I think this has also been the motivation to go in the direction of activism, because I saw the that there was a missing link between what the scientists said and our actions. And this also, we can also see that in every climate summit that happens every year. I mean, the last year didn't happen actually because of Corona, but I was at the climate summit in Katowice 2018, where Greta Thunberg and other activists all around the world also participated. And for me, it was such a stark difference between the conference halls themselves, where people always speak about very technical, very detailed stuff that nobody understands, and the outside where people sit from all around the world, maybe also islands that will be flooded if we continue to emit greenhouse gases. And these differences are really stark in this very small area of the climate summits. And I think for me, this was also the moment where I realized that keeping to the scientific side of it is not enough. We have to step further. We have to take action. We have to do whatever is possible for us to have impact on the world. And I think one of the main reasons also is the IPCC report. The IPCC, this is like a large group of scientists who review the current climate science every other year. And this 2018 report really showed the difference between a 1.5 degree warmer world and a 2 degree warmer world. And from the first look of it, you think there is not such a big difference because it's only 0.5 degrees, but they actually showed that there is a stark difference, and that if we move towards 2 degrees warmer world, that might be a world where we can't move back again. There will be faster climate change, and also something called runaway climate change, where we start, for example, defrosting the permafrost in Siberia, and then this emits methane, and then this also contributes to climate heating. And for me, this was really the moment where and coming back to our topic now, the Green New Deal, where I saw that a Green New Deal in all of what it means has to happen, because I think the Green New Deal in its fundamentals is really the realization that incremental changes aren't enough anymore. We have to turn around our whole economy. We have to turn around all the systems that we rely on, be it transportation or energy, or the way we consume and produce. And I think this, in the idea of it, this is such an important set of ideas, because it incorporates social, ecological, and economical justice. Because we see a world now that is put together by big emitters and large companies that have a lot of profit on the one side, and we have a lot of people suffering from the impacts of the climate crisis all around the world. And mostly those two things aren't the same. So the people or the companies that contribute a lot to the climate crisis are not the ones suffering from it. So it is also a very social issue. And coming back to what I do, I think we all have to do something about it. And we have seen the global climate movement with Fridays for Future. And I think what Greta also always says, you're never too small to make a difference. So I think it's all on our hands, and it's all on we can all change the way we live, but we can also change the way we do things, the way we produce. We can change our company if we own a company, if we're founders, but we can all change politics, because we need a regulatory framework for these not incremental changes, but very, very stark changes in the future. And this is my part. So I'm working on political changes to make these transformations happening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the introduction. Last, but certainly not least, my final panelist today is also a WSA alumni and former winner, a botanist, founder and CEO of Green City Solutions GmbH. Peter Sänger represents the image of my hero, someone who is innovative, courageous, motivated and filled with purpose. Today, Peter is helping to create cleaner, greener city environments for their citizens. Peter.
Great, thank you very much. And I would like also to share my screen to give you a rough thought about what Green City Solutions and myself is doing. So my name is Peter Sänger, I'm 29 and I'm a horticulturist by heart. I grew up in a plant nursery until I was 17, and then I studied horticulture and business management, and then I fulfilled my dream by founding an own company back in 2014 right now. And this is called Green City Solutions, and that's technically what it is, because we grow fresh air in cities worldwide. And that comes out of this whole problem of air pollution and not livable cities. We all know about the big things about people move to cities, and by 2050, you know that we have a huge amount of people living in cities. We have a bunch of very documents. What our mission is that we, because 90% of all breathes polluted air. This is not just a problem in third countries like India or China, where you see these cruel pictures of a deep horizon. It's also here, as you can see it in London, for example. And this, of course, causes premature deaths, and especially now in the corona crisis, we see a lot of links between people who are already affected by bad air getting much more harmful here now in the coronavirus. And of course, we have also economic losses when people getting more sick and dying premature. So therefore, our vision is to bring fresh and clean air all over the globe. And that's what we are already doing. We are above our proof of concept phase. We have a really nice technology developed, and now it's about us to scaling the business. This is this year, but also next year, because we also our vision is still strong, and we want to create clean air networks. For that, we have developed the world's first biotech filter. The technology behind is that we went into the nature and we found these pretty. You may know it from your garden, and a lot of people don't want them in their green. It's really interesting characteristics for cleaning this very natural thing together with technology, with ways to make them more livable. That's a pretty interesting thing, because we see detecting the invisible, so the air polluters and the things which are. We try to bring both. But on the other side, we proactively can cool the air down by cleaning up dust in our direct surroundings, but also cool down the air by up to 4 degrees. When we see the hot summers, especially here in Europe, and they're getting increased by every year, cool down our hotspot situations in the city. And with this kind of is how the improvement of the air is moved forward by implementing our. We have a lot of experience in that field. We did about over 50 projects. We see money on board and also public funding. It's pretty interesting how the European Commission and European very, very important that where also governmental funds. And I want to close with a very emotional picture. We provide now kids there with 2 of our city trees. Every city tree can clean the by implementing much more city trees next year all over Europe and of course also all over the globe in the upcoming years. So just stay excited for the things which are coming. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to all of you. That they are our panelists for today, and we will have our discussion now. I would like to open up by actually asking, would anyone like to have a go at explaining what the circular economy is? About you, Brieuc.
Yep. Yeah, when we talk about the circular economy, you have something like more than 114 official definition of circular economy. So let's make it simple and say, okay, it's an economy where the very notion of waste doesn't exist. Actually, the notion of waste is very young. Let's say 100 or 150 years maximum. And you have only one species in this world that produces waste, and it's us, of course. So, I mean, waste that no one else is able to deal with, because all the species in this world are producing waste, but we are the only one to do waste that no one is able to deal with. So that's why we have to take this word waste and put it in the bin and talk only about resources. That's the main thing to remember when we talk about circular economy.
Wonderful. Okay, would anybody like to expand on that explanation from perhaps your own experience?
Yeah, I'm happy to expand on that. So what I looked at with Silfir for a couple of years was how we can, actually reintegrate the waste into the resources that we're using. So if Brieuc is talking about talking about resources, I think it's about designing consumer solutions, but also, I guess, industrial solutions already, having the next step of the resources that now consider waste, reintegrate into the next production cycle. So for me, it's really about designing solutions with every step of the life cycle of the resource in mind.
And I think, Bernhard, if I may jump in, I think this is the challenge. Europe is consuming a lot of goods that are produced outside. So we are importing a lot of things, but we don't have any standardized solution on how to have a kind of recyclability check for these products. This is number one, the eco-design behind the product. So having this for all the imports, besides carbon added tax, I think it could be crucial for the globe to have this implemented by the European Union. Second would be then to have also not only a theoretical recyclability check, but also a practical. Are the things really staying in Europe, or just like old cars are right now going mainly to Africa? So we are not getting back those things. Will this happen with battery cars as well? This will be then quite a challenge. So I think there are a lot of things to move forward, and the Green Deal goes in this direction. A lot of strategic developments going on, but still we see, especially with the cross-border rules, we have a bigger impact on the globe, and we should utilize this more.
And I think it's also important to go further than just recycling. We have to start at the beginning of the production and see how we can use less resources from the start. So reduce our resource footprint and design things that can be reused and can be long-lasting and can be repaired. And the last resort should be recycling these materials that should be recyclable in the first step, but it should be a very, very long-lasting process until they get recycled.
And I think I would like to add to that. So something that I've discovered being like a key challenge why that's not happening is because most businesses, in terms of their business model, are structured to have top-line revenue coming from producing more. And I think what we have to do is create businesses that have top-line revenue from, actually reuse, recycling, or even better, waste use of the stuff that they provide to consumers. Because if you look, just because this is the area I know most about, if you look at fashion, the majority of sustainable fashion labels, they use the same business model where they are actually incentivized to push product onto consumers. So what's the point of that? They might be producing with organic cotton, but they're still using a lot of resources, and they're actually incentivized to push more resources out into the consumer life cycle. So we really have to think about also business model design, not just product design.
But also what you said, Hannah, this is true for the whole economy. So if you have a linear economy that we have now mostly, it is designed to get consuming going. So to have products, and a lot of products, you have a resource use on the one side, and then you consume products, and then you have waste on the other side, so that people consume more of those products. So this is, we have to rethink the whole system and how our economy works and what business models are there. Because, for example, also repairing stuff should be like the whole repairing economy, or also service economy in like mobility as a service or energy as a service. That should grow bigger because then this is more going into a circular direction.
And as we say at Circulab, we must go from business model based on renew, what you just said, and actually to optimizing business models, because it's all that you said, guys. All the businesses, all the GDP is based on growth, economic growth, and we have to find a totally different growth, because actually GDP is one of the main source of climate change. So we have to find a totally other growth, and let's say a growth for the living, and that's why we call regeneration, because ecosystem regeneration is one of the key solutions to tackle climate change.
Actually, that's quite an interesting topic. If we bring that down to the company level, are profit and climate goals mutually exclusive? Can a company do good for the environment, for our climate, and still drive up profits? Is that even desirable these days? Yeah,
of course. If we stay in the textile industry, like Anna suggested, for example, you have a company based in Switzerland which is called Freytag. They totally changed all the value chain of the way they produce their apparels. So, for example, they use lin, they use modal, they use hemp, and they totally forgot all the things about cotton. So they use only local materials that are produced in Europe. And they design all the apparel with this, and they use, for example, vegetable inks and so on. And that's very interesting, because they're able to remove the button, for example. You unscrew them at the end of life, and at the end, your pants, for example, is able to biodegrade. So once again, it's always a question of design. When you integrate system thinking in mind, you can anticipate all the different steps of the value chain and create positive impacts, because their business is profitable and they have a good impact on the living ecosystems.
I think that I was just going to say that regarding the European Green Deal, they're looking also to prescribe how things are actually made. Do you think that industry needs this sort of level of guidance to make themselves more sustainable, more with the circular economy?
You have three main drivers to make the change, I think, for circular economy. So you have what you just said. You have all the rules, all the laws about all the constraints they can have. The second one is the user trends. So when people decide to stop buying plastics, for example, when there's a big plastic bashing going for 1 or 2 years now. So that's the second main driver, I think. And the third one is when you have pressure on raw materials. For example, if in the textile industry they have more pressure on cotton, they will have to find other ways to create their apparel. So that are the main three drivers to anticipate, I think.
Okay. My next question is more directed at you, Bernhard. Green tech companies balance on that thin line between being too early or being irrelevant. How can we ensure that we're able to scale up these companies fast enough to meet the need, to meet the challenge?
It will be a challenge to scale up. I think this is not compared to the United States. It's not our culture. It's not our financial system. A startup in Austria usually dreams having 10 employees after 3 years. In the States, it's about 1,000 or 100 at least. I don't know, Craig, you're more expert in that. So with the Green Deal coming up in the next 1-2 years, with new financial instruments, with new markets relevant, I think this will be the challenge for all those companies. Can we have enough capital? Can we have this mindset being applied to say this is a good solution? I think whole Europe shall have it, coming from a region like France, from Germany, and then going, of course, beyond. We see our companies are exporting right now 90% of their products already. So therefore, I'm quite sure that they will try to manage. But nevertheless, we see what in Berlin is going on with the gigafactory being built. This speed in Europe, I have not seen it before. So I think we have to increase the speed here as well to have the transformation towards this green growth, besides the quality of life growth that we in Europe should measure. Brieuc, I'm with you that we need more other indicators as well to measure progress besides the GDP. So yes, I think challenge and the financial mechanisms have to be there. Erste Bank former director Mr. Streichel said we in Europe will be good at developing green technologies, but at the moment we're not good at scaling those. So are we the R&D lab for green technologies in the future, or are we the production lab? I think we have to change the speed and the financial mechanisms there.
Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? You know, I guess a big part of it is going to be about how we make people aware of these initiatives and to engage with them and to get them on board, because of course consumers have an important part to play in demanding solutions that support a healthy environment.
Maybe I can add something not from an end consumer perspective, but for a product which is also going to B2B. So we cooperate with big companies, of course, with communities and the real estate sector, by the way. And when I look back into 2013, it's just 7 years ago when we started, there was a different mindset. For many of these players, sustainability itself wasn't the big thing. of course, they had it on their website, and of course, there was something like a green design, but now it definitely changed because they have their sustainability guidelines. They have people who deal with these topics within these organizations, and therefore, I'm pretty optimistic that we have here also at tremendous change, that the big players are reacting on the new consumer needs, and they expecting a kind of sustainability in their acts, and also an environmental thought, which helps us to accelerate our business. Because there are a lot of difficulties when I look back into the investors' things from us. It gets expected, of course, that we can scale and that we increase our revenues from year to year and our profits of that. And it's pretty difficult to bring a new technology in a rising market, which is not really defined, and also meet the needs of investors and all the other stakeholders we have here. But I mean, yesterday or the day before, the German government announced that they will fund startup ideas with a fund of 10 billion euro. And if you see that it also reached to the higher level, and the people are aware that startups can be the driver of tomorrow. And that's something I'm really optimistic about, because we shouldn't compare too much with the US system. As Bernhard said, it's super different. And when we getting success with the financial model we establish here, it maybe also can be a thing. And when you see, it's always the 0 to 1 thoughts which we learned from the US. Maybe we can do it like that. We design our own system to being successful, not just being the lab of technology, but also being the rollout and the scale up for technology. I'm optimistic that we have the companies and also now the field and space for actors, for startups, for entrepreneurs. So therefore, I think we have a good chance for that.
Wonderful. I once read that for an issue to take hold in the consciousness of people, information about the issue has to reach a minimum 2% information saturation, which is actually a real tall ask when we consider all the various sources of information that we are exposed to on a daily basis. I guess this leads to an important next question. Are we getting the message out there enough to bring about the change that we really need? Katharina.
I think that a lot has changed in the last 2 years, and I think this is also because so many people stood up in their different environments and went to the streets. And I think this is also what I wanted to contribute. I think we are not solely consumers. I think the consumer choices that we make have an impact, but everyone who sits here now also has parts of a company or consults other companies or has children or has another job or speaks with politicians on a regular basis. So I think we have so many ways where we can have impact on the systems. And I think it's also important that we speak about the challenges that we meet. And I found it really interesting what you all said, because I think every company also has to realize that it is in a political and social environment, and that we have as a society to create those rules that can be favorable for green businesses, for example, in Europe. What would be the regulatory frameworks that we would need to roll out those businesses to get those started? What would be the regulatory frameworks that we need for infrastructure being built in Europe, for good mobility and stuff like that? And all of these things have boundaries. So I studied in England, and I always went there by train instead of flying. And this was my consumer choice, and I could choose that because I could afford to go by train, but it took me so much longer, and it was so much more expensive. It was like 10-fold more expensive than going by plane, because you easily get a ticket from Vienna to London, say $36 or whatever. And the train is so much more expensive. And this is a privilege then. And we have to work on climate-friendly options, climate-friendly production, climate-friendly behavior not being a privilege but the norm, because now we live in a system where it's the other way around. Climate unfriendly stuff is always the norm, and climate friendly stuff is the privilege. So I think this is the regulatory framework that I was talking about, and this is where politics comes in, because they can set the rules differently in a system, and then make small businesses more viable in the system, or whatever, green businesses. Yeah.
Just to also jump in here, we've had our first question from Marusha from the Maldives, saying, we have a great concern regarding climate change as people living in small islands. We all believe we should work together in fighting against climate changes. We have young tech mindset and are willing to work for this here in this country. How can we best work together for this cause? And that sort of, if I may add on an additional question here, is like, is the world ready to work together?
Actually, we are all on the same boat, so we have to work all together. So of course we have to work in the same and go in the same direction, and more importantly, I think we have to share a lot of ideas and methods and tools, but the hard things have to stay locals, and you mustn't. I mean, we have to re-localize all the key activities to avoid all these transports, and to be sure that people are able to share their ideas and to be the most efficient as they can. And to get back to the Ausha's question, of course we can all work together, but I'm sure, especially in this context with small islands, they have to work for resilience of their communities, because the more you will be focused on the resilience, the more it will be they will be able to communicate and to make people work together, because resilience of a community is an easy reach objective. I mean, common to every stakeholders. And it's easier to get everyone in the same direction with this kind of objective instead of growth, because it's too broad, let's say.
Bernhard, if I may, I think COVID has shown us that the world working together can really tackle things, just like now having more opportunities to fight Corona. We see that the United States are coming back to the climate treaty of Paris. John Kerry, I think, would be a good bridge builder for the next COP. So I hope that the global alliance will be fostered, and with the hopeful successes after Corona, we could then face climate change on a global level as a major topic again. So I hope this alliance will be stronger after that, after some years we have lost here. Let me, besides these and the resilience activities, show you, I think this is the new format, and to do it this way, show you some pictures from the Maldives. This is my nephew. He's sailing around the world. He started in Croatia, and he went all the way to Seychelles. He got stuck in Corona, and he went to Maldives because the Swimswall, Austrian startup, is there mounting new PV modules. So this is a construction that is now going on the Maldives. This doesn't help to get land back in the Maldives, but I think this just shows how the global connected startup community, young innovators community, that is really trying to push things forward.
And I think adding to the political level of it, I think also that countries, or also continents like Europe, but also countries like the US, have a huge historical responsibility for the greenhouse gas emissions that we see. And I think we also have to be really, really good in distributing funds as well around the world to help other communities that are impacted by the climate crisis more than we are. And I think the Maldives and other island states are part of those who get impacted more and might also, with rising sea levels, lose parts of their homes. So I think it's about funding, and it's about knowledge exchange, because there is another paradigm or whatever idea that is called leapfrogging. For example, we had cell phones before. We had to build landlines through the whole country, and now we have mobile phones, and they don't use landlines, and we don't have to build them through the whole country. And some countries started with mobile phones, for example, many parts of Africa, and they jumped over our landline phones. And we can do the same with, for example, renewable energy. Other countries don't have to go all the way that we went with coal and fossil fuels. They can start right with renewable energies. And I think helping other countries, but also developing ideas together and knowledge exchange is really like the heart of the solution.
I think that's a very interesting point. I went on a tour of the Imperial College London a few years ago with a delegation from here in Styria, and actually one of the things that as a British person gives me great pride, and I'm sure it's something that is shared across Europe, is the simple diversity of people and where they come from and their backgrounds, studying together. And what we saw was that actually each person was bringing the problem that they were experiencing from back home into a setting where they could actually start to think about the solutions, and actually with the resource and the commitment and the visual awareness could actually go about working on some of these challenges. So I think education has a real strong part to play in how we understand the problem and how we think about certainly designing technical solutions to this problem. Right. So moving on to my next one, I would actually turn around and say that in general, we don't get to see the machinery behind this green revolution, if we can call it that. Clean energy production, for example, not unless you happen to be driving in your car and you see a big wind turbine, it's not necessarily visible that there's a lot of activity happening. But with the city tree, for example, it is something, it's present, it's tangible. How important is it that we can see progress in this area, actually visually make it something that people can see that progress?
Maybe I can jump in here, because I can see it on a daily basis what's happening, and hopefully we can do our best to motivate people that the change is not too huge to make it, but it's also something that we can do on a personal level, and therefore it's super important to show on many small projects, mid-sized projects, how the change can be run and can be done. Therefore, as you said, the big machinery behind, and there are super innovative companies in the background working on new storage for energy and renewable energies we never knew about. And I was in a consortium last year with energy specialists. They said the change of energy usage in the world is already possible with the technological innovations we have, but no one knows about that, and the governments are misunderstood this until now with their funding strategy and support strategies. So therefore it's super interesting and super important to visualize that movement under the surface, that people are positively and motivated for the future. So when I'm thinking about now, I live in Berlin. Of course, many people are innovators and very driven. When I go home to my rural area, I see that people are not that aware that this change is happening, and they are much less motivated to do their thing to motivate and to drive. So therefore, it's very crucial that we bring this to everyone. very simple and easy to see.
Yeah, if I could add to that, one thing that we found is that actually a key issue around changing over to sustainable consumption is that people are overwhelmed by the issue. It's so complex and involves so many stakeholders, involves so many aspects of your life that you don't fully understand, that people sort of, they shut down mentally because it's overwhelming. And I think a key change driver will be to simplify the experience of people with sustainable solutions and seeing them in real life, but also just having, like positively reinforcing stories around their own behavior are really important. With the clothing gifting app that we're doing now, Gifted, for example, what we found is that people want to have a profile that is almost like a sustainable consumer influencer profile, where they can see the impact of their behavior in a super simplified way and use it as a social currency. So I think it's really important that people have a simplified and positively reinforcing view on change that is being implemented, instead of sort of guilt tripping them. I don't think that's going to work.
It's an extremely interesting point that it sort of brings me on to the idea of the dripping water hollows out stone, not through force, but through persistence. And how important is it for young people to make their voices heard on matters relating to the environment? We talked about Greta, and that's clearly when we have pre-COVID times, mass gatherings of people expressing their thoughts and opinions and views. This is another form of visualizing the problem.
I think also to add to your question earlier on the communication, I think we have changed our communication in the last 2 years, but not enough. I think many people don't realize that it is that we don't have so much time, and that the transformation will be huge. And this is overwhelming, as Hannah said. What we need is really to change every system that we live on. And I think what helped the topic really was Greta Thunberg, not only as as her person, but also as a little girl, because the topic changed from an environmental topic to a topic that concerns the future and every future generation. So many people, this changed to an emotional topic because many people have children or grandchildren or a niece or a nephew or are young themselves, and they think about, hey, what does the world look like in 20, 30 years? Will I have kids? Do I want to have a family and raise a family in a future that we are heading now? And I think we have to go on really talking about those challenges and the stories of people around the world. And that's why I thank also Arusha from the Maldives for the question, because I think this is also such a powerful movement, because it's worldwide. There are so many young people worldwide stepping up, talking about their individual challenges. And I think we have to show that, we have to make them visible, we have to make those voices heard, and we have to make the solutions heard as well, as Peter said as well. So we have to have this two-sided approach where we have to step forward and tell the stories of the farmers losing their land, of the people on the islands suffering from fearing the climate crisis. And on the other hand, the solutions that are out there, and that we can actually scale them up and work together as we would do in any other crisis probably. I think it's very important also what I learned from the Fridays for Future movement, to not underestimate young people. Young people are not stupid. Young people are not, they are so wise. I have met so many people who are super intelligent. They are they prepare all the strikes themselves. They talk to scientists about the solutions. They want to know how to do things. Some of them will go on and maybe also found a business. Some of them will become politicians in the future or whatever. But they are so bright, and talking to them about their future and having them have a say in what this should look like is really important, I think.
Completely agree. And talking about young people, just a quick reminder that you, the audience, have the opportunity to engage with this discussion panel. If you do have any questions, please use the chat box, and we'll be more than happy to pose them to our panel. I would like to move on a little bit, just to get a little bit of understanding of the startups and startup what startups are working on. The European goals extend to many different sectors, including construction, biodiversity, energy, transport, and food. Where can startups have the greatest effect? Perhaps, Bernhard, you can enlighten us and let us know a little bit more about, what is the Green Tech Cluster doing? What are the challenges that are being tackled within your organization?
Okay, a lot of questions. What areas are most important or most interesting to startups, I think, is the most crucial out of them. So we see we have a lot of hardware-driven startup possibilities. Hardware is always hard to scale, but it's definitely needed. Then we have a lot of digitalization startups. This is where everybody looks. Can we have a sharing economy driven by IT solutions? And can we find new ways to get out to the customers to have the scaling? So this is a very interesting field, of course, and this is also where the venture capitalists are very strong. And the third part is rather social startups, changing things, don't necessarily looking at the big scale up, but being on a regional level, really engaged and to grow within the region, and which is enough for them. So in our cluster, we have a lot of technology-driven startups as well. So of course, clean energy is always the one to go, and where we see also the investments are coming right now. Let me give you one example. It's a science park example as well. EET, Christoph Grimmer from Technical University. So he invented a thing. He could measure when a household needs electricity, and using that, he could just plug it in. It's allowed in Europe to have 800 watts being pressed into the plug. So he invented a balcony PV photovoltaic module. So you just plug and play. That's the easy thing that you can do right now. Plug in this energy storage system plus the PV module. You don't have to install anything, just hang it out and plug it in. That's what you need, and you can reduce your electricity bill by 50–70%. And the best thing for urban customers, you can take it with to the next flat that you're moving on. So balcony power, green power, so to say. And this is one startup that is right now growing quite intensively. So it's nice to see them start going from 2, then 4, now to more than 20, about 30, having the first production line being now ramped up. So these things are quite nice to see and to help them to get to the next level. In the field of digital startups, we see that with the Corona crisis, a startup in Venium that has grown quite intensively. They're utilizing data out of mobile phones with the European standards on privacy to better forecast and to better direct mobility. So having lower CO2 emissions and better mobility experiences. And they are on a good way as well. And with Corona, all the mobility analysis, how the Austrians are are in lockdown or are going to work. So I think a lot of opportunities, to sum it up, in the energy field. We see in the recycling business, this is stone age, so to say, from the processes. There's a lot of process innovation as well that is needed there in digitalization, as well as, of course, food and material. There are a lot of startups coming up as well.
Thank you. We have our next question from our community here, from Marina in the chat. Are you engaging in projects to enable youth in developing countries to use your solutions or to transfer the knowledge? I'm going to throw that open to anybody here who wants to have a go at that.
I'm happy to take this question. So for the Gifted app, what we're actually, or the reason why our team is so excited about this solution to for gifting clothing between friends, family, and neighbors is the scalability. So the reason why we're going for this concept is because it was important to us that we develop something that can be scaled globally without, barriers of entry. So not, confining it to the European Union or the US or even Germany where we're launching, but creating something that can be used globally. And I think there is this potential also for an international democratization happening with new green tech and sharing economy models coming out. So that was our approach and consideration in the process. I'm not sure if this question is aiming also at sort of if it's a franchising question, if other people could run the solutions that are being developed by us in other countries. We're not intending to do that, but we've looked more at the scalability and possibility of using it anywhere in the world, independent of infrastructure. So all you need to use the Gifted app is a mobile phone.
Hannah, maybe we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to sort of just revisit this topic on what does it take to offer sustainable fashion, and how much is this largely dependent on the business model, which you just talked about a bit there, and how much of it is based on the materials used in the clothing, in the original manufacturing process, in the fashion industry today?
I'm not sure I understand that question. Can you repeat?
So when we talk about sustainable fashion, there's two components. There's the material that's used in the production of clothing. Is it biodegradable? Can it be planted in the ground? Is it durable? Can it be reused over a very long period of time? Or are we relying more on our business model, which is ensuring that we add a price, for example, to the end of the life of the product, we're providing channels to be able to bring that product back in, or in your case, providing a platform that enables people to, after they've derived all the value and the use for themselves, that they can pass on that to create value for others.
Yeah, I guess it's important to look at what we've done as a team with Silfir as a circular fashion brand, and how with the Gifted app actually just working on the redistribution of clothing that has already been produced. And I think one of the key reasons why we're now looking at scaling the Gifted app is exactly because we found that our personal view is there's already enough clothing in the world. We don't need to produce more. And if we produce it that much better, that doesn't change the fact that there's already enough clothing. And it's more impactful to work on redistribution and on using the resources that have already been brought into the consumer space. So I would argue that yes, when and if clothing is being produced, it is very relevant to make it biodegradable, but it's also equally important to make it super durable. That's also an aspect that often is not looked at, because if you produce a piece of clothing, the environmental impact, the resource impact is huge. you know, like a pair of jeans needs something between like 10 to 20,000 liters of water. And, you know, it's insane once you look at the actual resources needed for producing clothing and how we're using it as a waste product, really. So I would argue, yes, we should make the production of clothing more sustainable, but we should act like, I personally believe that the usage of the clothing that's already been produced is, you know, is enough of a challenge to look at, and is the more important one, actually.
Thank you very much. I would like to sort of come back to one of the core questions here, which is how can we all contribute to slowing climate change? One of the interesting things that's happened through COVID.
Craig?
Hello?
Craig, yeah, just to get back to Marina's question, because before you go up to another point, yes, with Circulab we developed many tools that are used in many universities in Africa, South America, and they are very easy to use. So do not hesitate to have a look, and you'll be able to redesign or design regenerative business models. But just a quick point about the Marina's question, but of course, go on, Craig.
Thank you very much for the contribution. The topic relating to how we can all contribute, and what I was trying to raise the point around is that through COVID we are relying more and more on digital forms of communication. It seems like I come in each morning and we've got lots of emails. Some of them are more useful and valuable than others. Some can be actually spoken rather than written. And this really sort of gives us the opportunity to also look at how we make use of data, information, resources that are required to send that. I think that Brieuc, you mentioned, made the suggestion about, for example, turning off the camera sometimes to be able to preserve some energy when we communicate. Does anybody have any particular thoughts about this, and also, of course, more broadly about how we can all contribute to slowing climate change? Brieuc, how would you like to lead us on this?
Actually, all our choices can be seen from on the CO2 emission point. However, of course, climate change is a massive problem, but it's only a symptom. Actually, we have to keep systems thinking in mind and say, okay, climate change is actually only a symptom, and we have to get back to the problem. And to get back to our personal level, it's overconsumption of resource, of products and services that will lead to climate change. So on a personal level, we just have to be careful to what we consume, and like Anna or Katharina said, we have to be very careful to what we buy, to what we can repair, what we can give, and that's very important because we have many resources, and we have to deal with carefully to be sure that all the things we have will be well optimized.
Bernhard, if I may, I think data and lifestyle, we have to bring this together. So being data-driven, how many CO2 emissions do you really emit? And then change the things. I think it's not for all of the people, but I think for a lot of people in some gamification aspects that you could utilize around tools like the lifestyle check from your NEOM research. That is on lifestylecheck.at. I know there are several other tools, but it's nice. In our office, everybody did the lifestyle check, and we did not name the lifestyle check, and we tried to reach out whose check is this, because you then see how many on mobility, how many CO2 emissions you have on fashion and so on. And having this kind of gamified experience on reducing the CO2 emissions each year and being reducing faster than the past that is needed, 6% a year it is right now. And this is quite a challenge. After 2-3 years, there is not so much left to still go further. But I think we have to bring data and lifestyle together, probably with the power of gamification.
I think I would like to add to that, because I like the question with this chat now. Maybe we would have all been in Graz at the moment, and then we would have all driven there in our various transportation systems. So we might have taken the train, but some would also have flown here probably. So maybe the data that we now use for transmitting our video and our audio is not the largest part of our CO2 emissions that we could have had. And this brings me to the question that I, as an activist, that there are a lot of questions around what COVID, is COVID good for the climate crisis, blah, blah, blah. And I think there are parts where we learn something. I think many people now know that they don't have to chat around the world every now and then for just one meeting. They can also meet via Zoom or Teams or whatever. I think this is a good part, but there are also things that we have to unlearn again, because many people now rely on their for example, on their car, because they don't want to go by public transportation in times like these. So there are things that we have unlearned as well, and it's also only a very small dent in our CO2 emissions. So if we start economy now, then this will rise again, which brings me back to Brieuc, who said there is another route to the problem. It's not only the CO2 emissions is what we see as a result, but we have to really go further. And I also always say we don't need, the good thing about the climate crisis is we don't need a lockdown right now. We can transform our economy in a very sustainable way. But this is not incremental changes, as I said at the beginning. And I think this needs every one of us in our different roles in the society. And I mean as consumer, but also as a person. We vote, we can go to the streets, we can make our political voices heard, we can found a company, or we can support also NGOs that might go in another direction. And I think these things we all have to do on our individual basis, and also politicians, they are only individuals, so they have to put into place the right regulatory frameworks for that to happen.
I would like to, because we're into our final stretch of this panel discussion, we've got one question here from Natalie Bode. What do you think are the most important impulses that governments have to give? And I would also like to tie that in with your response, a very quick response. I'd love to go around each one, so you get your final word. For me, it's what are some of the most interesting new technologies, policies, or consumer trends you are excited about at this particular time? So if you can try and give your perspective on the government, but also a single line or a sentence in terms of what are you most excited about? What are you most hopeful for at this particular time? And take the opportunity to reflect on your own backgrounds if you should choose policy, technology, or consumer trend. Let's start off with Peter.
Thank you very much. I try to keep it short. I'm pretty excited about the disruptive and super fast times we are living in. We see a lot of innovations coming up. We see a tremendous change. And we are 20 kilometers south of the new Tesla gigafactory here. So I can see it here, what happens and how that comes also to Germany, what never was expected before. And I see that we are in the middle of a change. And as I see that the times are moving so fast, we will see a lot of good things coming up. And that's pretty motivating. We are in the middle with a green startup. And I think that also the times changing for the support of these kind of startups, that scale is not just the maximum thing, but also there comes the part of sustainability in that business models which are just created for tremendous growth are not longer the thing to have, but more startups which are looking also in other directions like social and environmental sustainability.
Thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's really exciting to see, as Peter's mentioning, that there are now consumer solutions that are at this level of maturity where they can actually be adopted by a wider audience. And I think this goes for products like Tesla, but it also goes for technology just being at a maturity level now where we can leverage things like the sharing or the gift economy in new, unprecedented, scalable ways on a global level. And I think we will see so much change from these areas arising over the next 5 to 10 years. We can't even imagine the shift in consumer behavior this is going to bring along, especially in connection with this new generation that Katharina was talking about, the Friday for Futures generation, really taking leadership and ownership of a new way of global society. So I'm definitely on the side of being hopeful that we as humans can implement the change necessary. And I think it's one of the most exciting challenges to combat and be part of.
Thank you. Brieuc?
Yep. I think to get back to Natalie's question, the best thing that governments can do is to change the rules, because when we see that most of them are still focused on GDP, it's one of the key drivers to collapse, actually. So we have to change the rules, and then we will have the best incentives, because the rules will be different, so we will have different goals to follow up.
Thank you. Bernhard?
I'd like to stress the point Brieuc made, that's why I raised my hand. Not change the rules completely, but make the markets work like they should. The costs of environment have to be out in the market. Stop incentives, stop other things, just make it work. Whether at the end of the day it's a carbon price with a clear, steep incline price that everybody knows about 10 years ahead, whether this is the World Trade Organization saying, yes, cross-border adjustments, climate tax at the borders, this is the way to go forward. With one document, we would have China, US, and Europe being changed. We still have to watch out from a global perspective that China is still selling old coal technology to Africa as part of their Africa strategy. So this was one thing that I was completely blind about before I learned this. So we have to really have a clear path that for the whole globe. So I think this is the most important thing that we have to change, that the markets work like they should. The cost of the environment and the cost of climate change has to be in.
Thank you. And finally, Katharina.
Yeah, I will. It's very similar what I wanted to say, and back to Natalie's question as well. I think there are two things that governments can do now, and this is do the right thing and stop doing the wrong thing. So doing the right thing would mean, for example, now with all the responses and the rescue funds with Corona, we have a lot of money on the table at the moment in all countries, especially in Europe. And this money can go into the right direction and fund business ideas that are green, and fund businesses also in their move and transformation path, and also industries in their transformation path to a more sustainable economy. And then governments have to stop doing the wrong things. What do I mean by that? There are so many fossil fuel subsidies still. Peter talked about Germany. Germany, without the subsidies on coal, coal wouldn't be at all feasible for Germany anymore and not at all economically viable. So they would move even faster probably to renewable energy if they would stop their subsidies on coal, and also subsidies on fossil fuels in Austria and all over the European Union. So stopping those wrong subsidies, investing in the right infrastructure, investing in the right things. This is what governments, especially now, can do. And tying back to the Green New Deal that we spoke of, I think this is the heart of the Green New Deal, is transforming into the right direction.
And that is a very wonderful point to end on. Thank you very much for taking us on a full circle on this discussion. I would like to take this opportunity before we hand over to thank you, our panelists, for participating in this conversation. I think that the topics and the conversation was engaging and very relevant to some of the challenges that we're facing today. Thank you very much to the European Young Innovators Festival for hosting us today. It is my pleasure to now look at handing over to the next session, which is Ask Me Anything with Julia Dujmovitz. She's from Austria. She's an Olympic gold winner and snowboarder and entrepreneur. And in the next session, you'll be able to ask Julia anything that you have that you've always wanted to ask somebody about motivation and perseverance, and to learn why she has developed the app Mind. Thank you very much again. Thank you to you, the audience, for tuning in and giving us your ears and your eyes. I look forward to hearing from everybody in the future, and hopefully you succeed at whatever you're trying to achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.